September's upon us. We're back to work. We're back to school. So time to get back on budget.
Absolutely. Martin Lewis is going to be here every Tuesday, and today he's brought his, well, September savers, isn't it?
Back to reality, I'm afraid.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It's depressing, isn't it?
It's bill busting. It's never depressing. It's putting more money in your pocket, even if you haven't got that much to start with. It's never depressing.
Loads and loads of questions, as you can imagine. Our first question is all about energy bills. Laura Day emailed us and she asked, I'm on a key meter with Swalec, and with the recent news of a price hike, I'm worried about being able to afford my electric over the winter. What can she do to get cheaper electricity?
Well, Swalec is part of the SS&E group, which has announced that on the 15th of October it's putting prices up 9%. The problem is if you do a comparison now, then you'll move to one of the companies that haven't put its prices up. And I always say energy companies, my impression, bah, they're like sheep. When one moves, the rest follow.
Exactly.
However, if you're on a prepayment meter, that is a relatively expensive way to pay. The first thing to do is check if you can move to a normal credit meter. It's not as good for budgeting. That's, you know, on a meter that just sends you the bills.
Right.
And then switch to monthly direct debit. Some allow you to do it for free, some don't, so I check that. If you can't move because your credit score isn't good enough or you can't afford it, then it is worth doing a comparison to see if you could fix more cheaply. There are a few prepayment fixes out there for those who aren't on prepayment. There are some very cheap fixes you could look into right now to avoid price hikes. If not, it's a debate whether you should actually try and move right now or you should wait until all the big 6 companies have announced price hikes and do a comparison then. But the most important thing I would do in your case is check whether she can move to a normal direct debit monthly billing, because that is a lot cheaper.
Right, OK.
OK, next question is about water bills.
Yep.
And Anita Edmonds sent us this via video message.
My question is, with my water bill, when it comes through the post, it's on a meter and it tells me how many units of water I've had come into the house and how many of units I've had go out. Both numbers are always exactly the same, regardless of the fact that I fill up my very large fish tank with water and that water evaporates. I drink some water, I water some plants, and yet somehow they're always disposing of the same amount of water. Can I question this, and can I get a refund? Thank you.
There you go.
Interesting.
Well, it's worth remembering the assumption is when you drink water, they assume what goes in must come out. And that's the way that what your sewerage is always equal to your water on a water meter. Basically, it's always the same thing. The only people who can tend to get refunds are people who use really large amount of water that doesn't then go through the drains. Say you've got a big swimming pool or a soak-away pit or something of that ilk.
Right.
I'm not quite sure a 6-foot fish tank is enough to do it, but it's always worth making a call. Interesting to note she's on a water meter, so I'm not sure you're really going to win on that one. What I would say is for everybody out there, I've got a rule of thumb on water meters. If there are more bedrooms in your house than people, 4 bedrooms, 3 people, definitely check out getting a water meter, because it means in the past your bill was done on your water rates, which are a bit like the value of your house. So if you've got a very valuable house but there aren't many of you using much water, you'd be better on a water meter. And I've had tweets from people who've saved 500-600 quid a year doing this. Water meter switching is not trivial in some cases. It's not always right for you though. More bedrooms than people, check it out.
Absolutely.
Brilliant.
Mortgage question next. It was posted on Facebook by Emma Jones, and Emma says, I have 1 year left on my fixed rate, but if I leave early I get charged £3,000. Is it worth looking for somewhere else that does a cheap fixed rate mortgage for 5 years?
Well, the problem is you haven't said how big your mortgage is. If you have a very big mortgage, let's say it was £200,000-300,000 and you were on a high fixed rate, say 6%, and you could cut it to some of the super cheap 3% available now, you may be able to save more in a year than the £3,000 of the penalty. So get yourself on a mortgage calculator, look at that, and if it looks like you can, then go to a whole of market mortgage broker to see what the best deal is for you. I doubt though that's going to work. My suspicion is probably not, because your fee would probably be bigger if you're on a bigger mortgage. What I would say to everybody out there, if you're on a standard variable rate right now, it's often not been worth switching the last couple of years. Rates are now so cheap for some that if you're on a standard rate in the 4%, it's worth talking to a mortgage broker to see if you could switch and save by remortgaging, even with the fees. Some people, if they don't, are missing out on hundreds or thousands of pounds a year. It's a really good time. Mortgages are super cheap right now.
Very quickly, we've got Stuart Smith. He's got savings on his mind. Contacted us via Facebook. He said, my family and I want to save between £50 and £100 per month for the next 3 years. Best interest rates?
The best interest rate, First Direct, if you've got the bank account, which you need £23,500 to get, has an 8% regular saver linked to it, so that would be 8% if you're drip feeding the money in. If you're not with First Direct, Nationwide has a 6% one. If you're not with that, Saffron Building Society have one that everybody can do at 4%. Or if you just want to avoid tax, then Manchester Building Society's 3.06% on a cash ISA tax-free savings account. Dosh your money in there, and then build it up, and you can put £5,640 a year in a cash ISA.
Fantastic.
Take the rest of the day off.
Yes, exactly. Human calculator. Human
Amazing.
calculator.